Our hose line kits have arrived. So we're gonna open them up and we'll see what we got here. So I've been lately getting these kits off of Amazon from Evil Energy. Comes with all kinds of fittings, 2 of each, straight 45 and 90s, a couple dividers, which is perfect, and then 10 feet of hose. Now this is just the fuel line, still braided, but they also have the PTFE for high pressure. It's got the Teflon. It's got a Teflon hose in there as well. I used that on some of my other lines. But yeah, these kits are for the, I think those each were like right around 60 something dollars, $70. So you get a lot for your money. Fittings are really good. Nice fittings. They go onto the hoses. Fairly simple. You've seen me do that before if you've watched my videos. But we'll go in and we'll go over it again on this video. So before I drill any holes in the firewall or the fender for our bulkhead fittings, we need to figure out our spacing and how it's gonna look. Now, I don't have money to be wasted in building the time to be building hoses for scrap just for testing and looking. Maybe I'll do that in the future just so I have some, because it's not a bad idea actually. I built gauges for all the hard lines, so maybe I should do it for this too. But basically, I need to see what these are gonna look like in here, and that's quite a bit. Those are pretty large. So before I do that, I'm gonna put the intercooler back in so I have a full visual of how it's going to be and how I want to lay it out. I don't want to jump the gun and drill holes and then it not line up or not fit right. So let's get that intercooler back in. Okay. Now we got that in place, we can try and see what it's going to be like. There's not a whole lot of room to do this because, and I could go straight over here, but that doesn't match that side, and I'd really like it to match that side. So let's see what we can do. We got all these fittings. So I have 4 of each because I bought 2 kits. Let's get the 2 90s. See, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work because there's not enough space between the end of this fitting and the end of that fitting to go into that wall to add any hose. This one, the top one there is. I mean, that can't even go down. You can't go that way. See, like that, not gonna work, man. See, that won't work either. Okay, I think I finally have a plan for these hoses. What I ended up doing was taking a straight one, adding some hose to it, and then putting it in here and just did a rough estimate of trimming it. And it's actually, I trimmed it perfect where it's gonna go right into that one. You see this with its this loop, it's not kinked. It'll have its full length or full diameter for water flow. So I got that in there and then messed around with these. I taped on a jam nut for the other bulkhead fitting that's going to go in there, so I get a better representation of where this is going to sit. And it's going to sit roughly around in there, and then I'll run another hose that comes out of here up to that one, put a 90-degree on here. There's just no other way I could get it to fit to where the hoses would have any hose in there between the fittings. Like, I can't put it there and then have another 90 up there, because there'd be like hardly any hose. See, like that'd just be too much of a pain in the ass, I think, to get it to line up. Like, it just doesn't look like it would line up very easily, because there's not a whole lot of hose in there to flex and move around. We'll see. I'm going to take this fitting off and put it on this hose right now, and then we'll get that one in there, and then I will put a hose in this one, and we'll check it and see how it fits, how it looks with the 45 coming out of here or the 90 coming straight up behind it. But first things first, let's get this fitting on here, onto this hose, and we'll talk about that process. So these hoses have got to be the edges have got to be, the ends got to be straight. So what I do is I go over to my Nylon braid and grind it, and then I trim off all this nylon. Looks like some started to come out. I didn't get it trimmed off good enough. The nicer these ends are, the easier it is to go onto these fittings. Now, another thing I've learned is started using black electrical tape versus the blue painter's tape. Reason being, might not look like it, but this seems like it's thicker than the blue or than the electrical tape, and the electrical tape is more slick than this. This has more of a grip, and when you're sliding this over this B-nut or whatever you want to call it, this sleeve, when you're sliding this over here, it's got to slide down there. So I use Vaseline, put it on there. You can use the directions say to use oil, but I don't want oil dripping down on my hose. You know, spend a lot of money on these hoses, you don't want it covered in oil, right? Oh, put it on the inside of the sleeve too. And then this is the most difficult part, is putting this over that, pressing this inside there afterwards. can be difficult, but this part right here is where I struggle the most. Sometimes it goes like perfect, other times it takes some time. And I just try and twist it and push, and then eventually I get it in there. Sometimes I have to hit it with a hammer. They make tools for this. You would think that I would have it by now, but I've been spending all my money on other stuff, other tools. I'll probably have one before I build my next car, but for right now, these are the last hoses that I'm building for this car. Sometimes the tape starts to come out. But I don't know if you can see in there, but it's getting close. It's going. And I'm just holding it and pushing and twisting. All it is, steady pressure. Just turn it and twist it till it goes on. It's up in there now, and the hose is flush with the bottom of this sleeve. Looks nice down at the bottom. Now the next part, lube this up with some Vaseline. And then we press this into there. Oh, first let's talk. So this is gonna slide into the hose, right? And this is tapered. As this threads in and pushes in, it's gonna press against that hose and expand that hose into the ribs that's on this fitting, making it like so it can't come apart. Now I went fairly close. Aluminum wrenches specifically for this job. This is all that these wrenches get used for. I have blocks to where I can stick it in the vise and hold it in the vise too, but they're plastic, and sometimes this will turn out of it. So they make aluminum ones, which are probably a lot better than the plastic ones, but you know, this works too. Just gotta hold it. There we go. It ain't coming out. I try and always line up the fittings, the flats. I think it just looks better. So, all right, let's go. Put this one in, and then we'll start work on the next one and start fitting that one, getting that one lined up and fitting. There you go, that works. It's not kinked. Got a lot of room for water flow. Okay, hoses are in. They're not touching. I could have put this one up a little bit higher because that is pretty close. But with everything tightened up, like I don't think they're gonna, when they're all tight, they might touch due to vibration, but it's gonna be very minimal. It's not touching down there. You can get a rag in there to wipe and clean if you need to, which you will need to. So next step will be putting these fittings on. and running hoses up and back to the supercharger somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but we will get it figured out. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. So right here is where the intercooler lines come in, and I got a 90-degree fitting on here and a 3/8 MPT to -10 and fitting. This goes on this side and then this goes in here. So what we're doing is we are getting all of our fittings in place, and then we are going to start running lines from the back of the motor all the way down to the front where the intercooler goes. But I think I need to get some hoses put on these ends and then just run it down. I'll just take a quick measurement and do a guesstimation of how many feet I'm going to need to roughly get it to get where I'm going. The idea. Oh, excuse me. And we're going to have to go from a 12 to 10 also, so I need to get some number 10 line. Crap. That's what this is. I knew I had my line. I knew I didn't screw up. So I gotta get 10 lines to go to 12. So I needed some 12 to 10 adapters. Yeah, so really I don't even need anything. I don't even need that 10 line. I can just go, wait, no, I do. I'm gonna have to have the 10 line, because this goes to here. 10 lines got to come out of here, go into this straight, which goes into this, which goes into the 12s. So I'm gonna cut this 10 line in half, put it on these two fittings, run that down, and figure out where I'm gonna jump up to the -12 line. I want minimal as possible of this -10. I want the max 12 I can get. So let me get this line cut in half, get it spliced on to those unions, and figure it out from there, I guess. Hindsight, I probably could have just done all this in 10. Probably should have done it all in 10. Probably should have just done it in 10 lines, number 10s, because I had to cut these fittings off anyways and weld new ones on. So I should have just done it all in -10 instead of 12. And it would have been easier. Wouldn't have had to do the reducer. And could have just went. Oh man, I hope I have a number. Hope I have another number 1290. I do. I knew I ordered enough stuff. All right, let me get these lines cut, get this hose cut, and then start splicing them in, or putting the fittings on it, so we can start moving. Start moving forward, as they say. Now, as you've seen before, I like cutting my lines with a cutoff wheel. That one's actually too small. I'll put a new cutoff wheel on it. That way, with a new cutoff wheel, I can cut straight through the line. I don't have to spin it or do it twice. Now I'm going to cut this line in half. It's going to be too much material, but I will be able to trim it to where I need it, to where I'm going to put the unions in, the reducers in. Now as I was cutting that, I realized that I should have put tape on it to prevent the nylon from flaring out. That's what happens if you don't do that. So I will have to clean that up, because that will not go into the fitting like that. Let's go to the mirror braid and we'll see if we can clean that up. If not, then I'll put a piece of tape on it, a piece of electrical tape, wrap it around once, and it should be fine. The better the cut, the flatter the surface, the easier it is to go on to the fittings. So get some electrical tape, get the scissors, trim this up, and we'll cut it, tape it. Much better, but still want to go over it with one wrap of electrical tape. Pull it tight. Cut it. Don't pull it. Cut it. Now that one is ready to go on. See, it's got one wrap of electrical tape. Hope you can see that. There's no flares, flared fittings on there, or flared nylon sticking out. It's flat surface, so that one will go on the fittings nice and good. Now we'll do the same thing to this one. That one's good now too. Now, gotta put them on these fittings. So what I like to do is I think we talked about this before. I take Vaseline, rub it on here. Rub a little bit in here. Just to help it, this is the most difficult part, is getting this piece over this and getting that flat. Once you get that on, putting this in is fairly simple. And if I did my job right, this should go on here. It's going, it's going. Now, if you can see in there, I hope you can, probably not, but the hose is all the way up to the flat part of this fitting. It's up all the way, flush, ready to go. Now, take some more Vaseline, rub it on the nipple part, so it can slide into the hose, and then this can screw in. And as this screws down into this fitting, this flared nipple goes in and spreads out and presses the hose against this fitting, making a locked fitting. It will not come out. See? This one's, I did most of that by hand. I am gonna put some wrenches on it to tighten it up the rest of the way, but that's all done by hand. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do the number 12s all by hand. I might have to put that in a vise and hold it down. But still, it's still, you know, doing it with simple tools. Nothing extravagant. They do make tools to make this job a lot easier. I just don't have them. The only thing I got is these aluminum wrenches, just so it doesn't damage the fittings. See, like that's solid. That is not going anywhere. All right, so that one's done. Set that aside. But some of these go in like perfect. Like that one's already done. That one's already in there. That one wasn't near as much of a struggle as the last one, but that one's ready to be. The hose is already butted up to the base of the gem nut. Now it's time to put the fitting in. So some of them go easy, some of them go hard. The radiator hose ones that I did, the dash 20, dash 16, nightmare. Absolute nightmare. I also always line up my flats. I think it looks better. Just that small little attention to detail is what I think sets cars apart. So I always line up my flats. Just one little thing out of thousands. All right, so these are ready to go into the car and wrap down and see where we are going to cut them again to put our reducers in. Okay, now I got both the lines in and routed down, and I'll get under the car here in a second and show you. So underneath, what I'm thinking is running them through here somehow. Put some clamps on it, hold it away from the headers, obviously, away from the block, off of the block. Maybe put a clamp in there somewhere, right in there, off the back of the block to hold it. And then they will come around, come up and over, up top. They'll come up, over. God dang it, man, it's tight in here. They'll come up, over, around the top, and then down into here. But where do I put the reducers in? Maybe right there. I could put a clamp right here off of the firewall or off of the floorboard and put the reducers in right there. And then run 12s from there on out. I'm sure that would be fine. Okay, got her figured out. Let's move some stuff and get under the car. I'll explain to you what I did. Alright, so as you can see, I got the lines both, got both my lines down here. They're coming from the top. So what I ended up doing was I took one of the 12s and just put one end on it. Put one end on it. I had my hose clamps, on the hoses. I'll put those on here in a second. And then put this up in here. The one that I had made, or the number 12, I put that up in here, marked where I wanted to cut it. Went out, made that line, and set it here. Then I made my other number 12 line right here, set it in there where I wanted it, marked the second line where I needed it cut it, and put the flange on, and that's where we're at right now. So we're gonna put the fittings on, or the hose clamps. See if you guys can see. Okay, so as you can see, I got the clamps on there. Now they're just loose right now because I'm gonna move stuff around. I'm gonna go buy an 8L clamp, one of these clamps up here, that will clip onto one of these hoses and go to that bolt right there on the back of the motor. We'll go into that bolt and hold that steady. This clamp will hold the hoses together and spaced evenly. Where I put this, I don't know yet. Same thing with this one. This one will get moved, but it's loose right now. It'll probably get moved and go inside of here, and I'll just access it through here. But then these hoses are going to go up and around and down, like this. Hopefully you can see it because it's black in here, but yeah, that's the idea. They'll go like that, up and over, and then I'll mark them out and cut them and mount them. Okay, so I'm making progress moving forward on these lines. I'm getting ready to install a rib nut. It's a blind. It gets installed and then it gets squeezed with this rib nut squeezer, whatever you want to call it. And then I have a nut or a fastener inside there to where I can use a screw in. I got this from Hammer Fab. We use these things in the Navy all the time to buck rivets, but these are pretty cool little tools. They're not cheap, but they do a very good job. These little mandrels here, you got to buy each individual one separately. Yeah, so I drilled a hole up here, and that's where this rib nut is going to go, and then I'll show you why I did that here in a second. So this just screws on here like this. Stick it in the hole and you squeeze it. If you can see, it's squeezing it down and making it tight. The threads are pulling it tight. You see, so it's as tight as it can go now. So now I gotta release it by pressing this button here, and then it'll release the tension, and then I can screw that out, and then that fastener will be completely tight, and then I can put a screw in it. So yeah, that's a rib nut. I got a few of them in this car. All these are done with rib nuts. It helps you hide fasteners. If you can't get to the back, they're good for when you can't get to the back to put a nut on it. These go in there and they squeeze and they're tight and they act as your nut. Long-winded little bastard. All right, let's grab a fastener for that. So let's put the line. You come on point. Yep, that thing's too tight. That's gonna pinch the thing. So, but anyways, this is gonna go up here, hold this up, and it'll hold these lines out of the way, and then I can bring it down to my fittings right here. And I think it's gonna look good. But I have to go buy a bigger 8L clamp for this. I need an 8L clamp for that. So I gotta make a run to the store. So pause for right now. Okay, I'm back from the store. Got the 8L clamp in. It's working exactly like I wanted. Now I think I need to put another one over here to hold them right there. Hold it off the car, off the firewall, and just hold it in place. But how I'm gonna mount it, guess I'll have to figure that out. But kind of thinking I'd like to put one like maybe right there. Let's give it a shot and see. I'm trying to avoid drilling extra holes into the firewall. I'm trying to use existing bracketry that's already here to mount these to where they're not rubbing against anything sharp. For sure, can't be rubbing against anything sharp, but you don't want it rubbing against anything at all because it can chafe and rub a hole through it and then start leaking, and then you caught all kinds of problems. So that's why you got to have all these mounting brackets and everything, have it all mounted to where it doesn't move and it's not going to rub and it's not going to chafe. But as much as I don't want to do it, I have a feeling I'm going to have to mount at least one to the side of to the firewall at some point. I really need to get this lower 8L clamp on so I can hold the lines. So I'm gonna put an 8L clamp going off the back of this bell housing to hold these in place. get that in there, get it tight, get this tight, and then that'll show me exactly where this is going to be at, and then I can figure out this down here. And maybe that'll be enough, but I have a feeling it's not going to be, and I'm going to need to put something else inside of here, which I suppose was fine. It'd be cool if I could just mount something on the side here, weld something on the side here. I could just mount like a little bracket, make this bolt longer, and thread it to that bracket. Here's an important tip. I didn't know this, I just found this out yesterday. But yesterday I swapped out to a brand new cutoff wheel to cut these hoses. And then I tried using the same exact cutoff wheel to cut some metal, and it wouldn't cut it. Like, it did, but it was really, really slow and was heating the metal up a lot, and it was like burning it to burn through. So something must have happened cutting the hose. It must have clogged this disc up or something. So, and looking at it compared to the other ones, it does look more smooth, and not as abrasive. But so this disc will get put into a Ziploc bag and marked for cutting hoses only. That way I don't ruin any more. I use all my other ones for cutting metal. Just use this one just for hoses. Like I said, I got my tape, and I'm going to cut right in the center of the tape. Now, some of you might ask, why do I use a cutoff wheel? If you watch some of my other videos, maybe this video, I don't know. I talk about it. I have a set of cutters, but they don't cut all the way through the steel braid that's inside here. It always leaves some, and I have to go in there with some diagonal cutters and cut it again anyways. But yeah, I got some of these cutters right here. They work good for rubber, just plain rubber hose, but not so much for cutting the nylon stainless steel braids in here. It works for cutting cables and stuff like that. I think I got those for cutting my battery cables. But yeah, so that thing works good for electrical wires. But back to this, you see how this isn't straight? So now I'm going to put it on the mirror braid and straighten it out to where it's a much more even. A much straighter cut. Now I will go blow this out, replace that blue tape with some black tape, electrical tape, lube it up, and stick it in the fitting. You want to blow all that rubbery crap out of it. See it all come out? Now you don't have to swap this out for electrical tape. You could I've done it with this blue tape. And you know what? we're just gonna do it with the blue tape. But I'm gonna take the tape off to where there's only one wrap, so it's minimal tape on there. It's just gotta hold that stuff down to get the fitting over it. You don't want a bunch of tape on there making it fatter, because this is a tight fit as it is. As you've seen me do it before. Some Vaseline. Lube it up, lube it up, lube it up. Got some new dickies, got some new dress pants. Wiping oil and grease on them. All right. See, that one went on already. Straight cut, one wrap of tape to keep the nylon in there, and look at that. Don't get any better than that. Now let's lube this nipple up. Stop right there. All right, line up the flats. That one looks good. That hose is done. And put that back in the car, and then clamp it all back down, and then we can make the other one. Okay, I have the lines both completely back installed, and it's important to completely reinstall everything to make sure that everything is clamped in the way you want it before you mark and cut your line the other way. So this one is gonna get, we're gonna put another clamp in here, but I just don't have any right now. I want to put another one of these down here, so I'm just gonna hold it, and then wrap the tape around it and cut it, and then put it in. But it'll get another one of these divider clamps down here, hopefully, maybe, and then I'll put on another 8L clamp, probably one of those clamps. I'll probably put another one down here to hold it somewhere. I'll figure it out. All this is hidden, so I'll probably just drill and put a rib nut right there and just clamp it right there, maybe with a spacer or something. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But I got enough slack in it to where I can move that around as I need, and these are all not touching anything. They're all suspended down here where the fittings are, where I put the reducers. I might build, they are pretty close. I don't know if you can see in there or not. So I might put, when I get the motor out and I got more access, I might put something else in there to hold those separate a little bit. Maybe a couple more of these brackets with 2 8L clamps, just to space them out just a little bit, you know, and make it a little bit more secure. But yeah, it's coming together. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna get this set up, put the tape on it, cut it, and then put that fitting on there. And it's the same exact process as I just did. So we'll come back and I'll show you it all completed, all finished up. Okay, they're all finished. all finished, wrapped up. So now I can pull the motor out and start finishing up the engine bay. But yeah, so that's going to be a wrap for the intercooler lines. I think they turned out all right. Honestly, I think I could have went with a -10 AN instead of the -12 and just did -10 all the way back. But the intercooler lines that were originally, the lines that were coming off there, the fittings were too big for -10 AN, so that's why I went with -12. But the way that fittings are sold, they didn't have the fittings I needed. They didn't have a 3/8 NPT tap or a 3/8 NPT fitting to a -12 AN fitting. They only had a 3/8 NPT to a -10, so that's why I had to go to -10 to the back of the motor. But most of it's -12 from the intercooler all the way back to those that reducer right under the steering column. So should get plenty of flow, plenty of water flow, coolant flow through the intercooler and through the supercharger. Shouldn't have any issues there. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, hit that notification button. Got lots more content planning to come out. Hang with me, bear with me. I'm learning how to edit, and my videos will get better as we go, and you will see me grow in editing and as a fabricator, car builder. Just stick along with my journey, and we'll all grow together. You guys can learn from my mistakes as I learn from my mistakes. Yeah, so thanks again. Take care.